Hi everyone and welcome to Cim Sports basketball show. Tonight is the debut. Kale here with Kyle Draper. Great to have you here, Kyle.
What's up, my friend? How have you been?
Very good. How about you?
Good. Just enjoying this run that the Celtics are on. Big win over Miami recently.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, have you been impressed by their play so far in the bubble?
Yeah, for the most part, other than those first two games against Miami, and let's even talk about that. They actually played well in those two games they lost to Miami, but they didn't finish the job. They didn't play a full 48 minutes. So what we saw in game three was them put together 45 minutes of good basketball, and they were able to get the win. But that's the kind of effort they have to play with every single night. For some reason, I feel like this team needs to be angry at each other, needs to be doubted, and that's when we see them play their best. So hopefully they can keep it going.
What's been up with that third quarter? That's been very worrisome the entire playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. I think they've only won two third quarters in the playoffs so far. Especially these last two series. I don't know what's going on. Most of the time, though, they're playing with the lead. So I think they let their guard down a little bit. They forget, what got them to that point. With that being said, I think Brad Stevens has to do a better job getting these guys ready for the third quarter because, we've seen it in the first two games against Miami and the Toronto series as well. That's when you let teams back in. Think about it, Shai. If you have a 10-point lead at the half, that 10-point lead can go from 10 to 17 in the third quarter quickly, or it could go from 10 down to 6, down to 5, and that gives the other team hope. So if I'm a Celtic, third quarters are so important because you sort of want to bury your opponent.
Yeah, I agree with all this. I mean, on occasion, they've looked dismal in that third quarter.
Yeah, but it all starts with defense, right? And at times, I feel like the Celtics, if they aren't making shots, then their defense suffers. They don't try hard on the defensive end. And so, when you have a young team, and they're still young, I mean, sure, you got Kemba Walker, but Kemba hasn't been this deep into the playoffs before. When you have this young of a team, you have to realize effort and energy and defense is non-negotiable. You got to bring that every single night. And sometimes the shots aren't falling shot. Sometimes Jason Tatum, those nice sidestep deep three-pointers, he makes them sometimes, but sometimes he misses too. But you still should be able to rely on your defense to win games.
Yeah, what adjustments do they need to make going forward in this series? And is Hayward the key to winning it?
Yeah, I think Hayward's big, no doubt. We saw it in game three, right? The ball just moves so much better with Gordon Hayward on the floor, and he's always an offensive threat, but he's a really good passer. I think the adjustments you'll see more of Grant Williams. You'll see a smaller lineup. Sure, they'll go with Daniel Tice, but I don't think you'll see a whole lot of Robert Williams and Enes Kanter going forward. I think Grant Williams will be that first big man off the bench.
I gotta ask, how impressed have you been with Tyson Wanamaker in this playoffs? In my opinion, they've really held the Celtics head over the water, and Tatum's taken it beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, and we always hear about the big name players, the Tatums, the Jaylen Browns, the Kembas. But, Tyson Wanamaker, they're veteran guys. They're older guys. Wanamaker's 31 now. Tice has played professionally overseas. And so these guys, it was interesting. I think it was game 2. Brad Stevens played Tice 34 or 35 minutes. And that's never happened for him in a regular season. And so that shows you just how much trust Brad Stevens has in that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, 4 different EuroLeague players on the same team, former EuroLeague players on the same team. That's not something to take for granted. I mean, I've seen Poirier, Tice, and Wanamaker all give me fits. Of course, I'm a big EuroLeague fan. Grew up as a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan since the days of Anthony Parker, who's an all-time legend of the team. And yeah, just watching those two, because they're so good, it's so annoying. But
Yeah,
I'm glad they're on the right side right now.
yeah. It's interesting. The Celtics have done a great job finding talent overseas, right? You mentioned Poirier. I mean, Daniel Tice has been, maybe the unsung hero, the most surprising guy this season. I mean, here he is, a starting center in the NBA, making $5 million per season, when the going rate usually is $15 to $20 million. And so he's probably one of the most underrated, underpaid players in the NBA. And we all know about Brad Wanamaker. I'm just so happy for him. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia. He was overseas his entire career, but finally he gets his shot with the Celtics. And I think he's found a home. He's been a key contributor for them.
Yeah, and at least this time he's not on the wrong side of Kemba Walker, unlike his UConn Pittsburgh days.
Right. Every time we show that shot, in the Big East final, you see Wanamaker over there also. It's cool to see that they're teammates now.
Yeah. So let's say the Celtics get past the Heat. How did they stop LeBron or Jokic?
Ooh, I don't know, man. All right, let's start with the Lakers first. I don't think the Celtics can beat the Lakers. And I'll tell you why. The Lakers can play multiple style shy. They can go big against you with AD, Dwight Howard, and JaVale McGee. Or like we saw in that Houston series, they can go small. They didn't play JaVale and Dwight in that Houston series and still were able to win. And the key is, it's not LeBron, it's not AD, it's the other guys. If the other guys are making three-pointers, which I think they will, then it's going to be hard to beat the Lakers. And the reason that they're going to make three-pointers is because they'll get so many good open looks. You got LeBron James, who's one of the best, controllers of a basketball game, and then Rajon Rondo also. And so I just think the Lakers are just going to be hard to beat, whether it's, this series against Denver or if they beat the Celtics. Denver, on the other hand, I think that'd be a great series, Celtics and Nuggets. I think Jokic puts so much pressure on you, obviously as a scorer, but as a passer, right? And Jamal Murray may be having the best postseason out of anybody, right? I mean, this guy's been on an incredible run. And so I wonder how much Denver would have left in the tank. Tough series against Utah. Tough series against the Clippers. It's going to be a tough series against the Lakers. And so I think the Celtics have a better chance against Denver than the Lakers.
I think any team has a better chance against Denver than the Lakers, really.
That's right. You're right. I mean, LeBron's playing at they won game one against the Nuggets, and I think LeBron had 14 or 16 points, something like that. Like, LeBron didn't even have to go, take over the game. Anthony Davis finished with 37. Rondo was great. Dwight Howard was great. So they got a veteran team over there. It's hard to pick against the Lakers right now.
Yeah, but on the other hand, those veteran players could run out of gas if Denver gives them a pretty hard time. And that could work towards the Celtics or Heat advantage in the finals.
Yeah, but, they just had 6 months off because of the pandemic. So I don't think these dudes are that tired. And, the thing that you need to see happen if you're the Celtics, you need Denver to push them to 7, right? Mm-hmm. But based on game one, I'm thinking it's going to go 5. I think the Lakers are going to steamroll them. Then they'll get a whole week or two of rest or whatever it may be. And so, the Celtics could have took care of business in game 1 and 2 and made quick work of Miami. Now they're going to have a long, drawn-out series. It's going at least 6 if the Celtics win, maybe even 7.
So, in other words, your favorite right now to win it all is the Lakers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would go Lakers first, Celtics second, Denver third, and then Miami. That's the order.
I gotta ask, which team has impressed you the most so far in this bubble?
Well, I mean, you gotta, if we're going back to the seeding games, you got to talk about the Phoenix Suns, right?
Yeah,
they came out of nowhere, right? And played phenomenal. And I wish they would have made the playoffs because they were the hottest team in the bubble. Another team, Miami, right? This is Miami's only second loss in the playoffs. And so they've been steamrolling teams. And so they've sort of overachieved and found their stride. Who else? The Lakers, obviously, they've impressed me. I thought they'd have a much more difficult time with Houston last round, but then it's like they lose the first game and then they figure it out and then they steamroll teams. And so, give it. But conversely, though, Shai, you got some teams that have surprised me, but let's talk about the disappointments, right? The Milwaukee Bucks. Let's talk about the Clippers. I mean, those are teams with high hopes. Toronto Raptors, the way they played. I know they pushed the Celtics to 7, but the Raptors didn't play good basketball. Pascal Siakam was nowhere to be found. And so there's been a lot of disappointments down there in Orlando, too.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I got to ask one last question. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I know he won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, but based on his performance against the Heat, I don't think that was the right choice by the NBA, even though it was up until the pandemic.
Yeah, it was a regular season award, right? I mean, it's
an MVP.
He had the best regular season for the best team in basketball. So I'm not too mad at that, because what happens is we say, well, look at them. They lost in the playoffs. But it's not about the playoffs. He was the best player in the regular season for the best team. So I don't mind him winning that. But with that being said, Giannis may be the 2-time MVP, but I think we can all still agree LeBron is still the best player in the NBA.
My opinion, Durant is the best player when healthy.
Nah, Shai, but he doesn't do it defensively. LeBron controls the game. Like, Durant is a great offensive player, unstoppable, but he doesn't control the game. He's not as good as LeBron defensively. He's not as good as LeBron as a playmaker. His basketball IQ isn't as good as LeBron's. And so we're talking all-around player. Is Durant a better scorer? Yes. But is he a better basketball player? I can't give him that nod.
Thank you very much for joining the show. It was a pleasure as always.
All right, my friend. Thanks for having me.